Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year. My name is Forrest and today is marking the second installment in my complete analysis of all 389 Bach chorale harmonizations. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second chorale in the volume that I'm looking at, Ich dank'dir, lieber Herre, which roughly translates to I thank you, dear Lord, or something along the lines of I thank thee, Savior, dearest. So he's thanking God in this chorale. It is the second chorale in the edition that I'm looking at, and it is a lot more harmonically involved with some really cool, almost quasi-Renaissance changes throughout the chorale. So I'm really excited to take a look at it deeper with you all. And I'm really excited to keep moving forward. So let's go ahead and not tarry too long. Let's just start by taking a look. So just like last time, we're going to take a look at the key signature first. We have three sharps. The ending chord is A major, A, C sharp, E, and A. So I am inclined to believe that we're in the key of A major to start. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by marking it off as A major. The first chord we have is A, C sharp, E, and A. That's a 1 chord. And then we're going to have a marcation here to suggest or to indicate that there's a passing tone there. Then we have F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and A. That's a 6 chord. F sharp minor is the relative minor of A major. Then we have C sharp, E, and A. That is a 1 chord, an A major triad in first inversion. C sharp is in the bass now. 6 to 1, that's an interesting progression because one of the themes is that I talked about yesterday was chords that are a third apart share 2 notes in common, and progressing between them, only 1 note is changing. But notice how Bach is only, even though they share 2 notes in common, the spellings of them still allow for, like contrapuntal movement. The soprano is keeping the A steady, but the other voices are moving for the most part. If not melodically, like in terms of their note choice, rhythmically, we have a passing tone here. And then we have D, A, F sharp, and A. That's a D major triad. And in the key of A major, that's a 4 chord. And we have another passing tone. So this nice descending line in the tenor. And here we go. We already have a chromatic note. We have D, D sharp, and E, this rising line, or C sharp, D, D sharp, and E, this rising chromatic line in the bass. Very beautiful. This is the chromatic motion that I know Bach for. And here, this chord right here is D sharp, F sharp, A, and B. That is a B7 chord in first inversion. So that's a 5-6-5, but B7 is the dominant of E, which is the 5. So this is a secondary dominant. But also, if we look ahead a little bit, we're going to see that we cadence here. And if you listen to the chorale, the first cadence that we have is definitely not a half cadence. We're not cadencing on 5 here. We're definitely cadencing on 1. In the key of E major. So I'm going to mark E right here, but this has to be the coolest part of the chorale right in the beginning, is that we get 5-6-5 of 5, and that's just going to be 5-6-5 in the key of E, but we get an E minor triad on the next beat. How cool is that? It has a very medieval, a very Renaissance sound. Not that those are really interchangeable, but when you hear music that has that cadential sound where they go from minor to major, in a close proximity, that cross relations where we have G and we have G sharp in close proximity to one another, that's such a great sound, and I love it so much. It sounds like a harmony or a harmonic practice that predates Bach, but you see Bach here using that style. It's really fascinating. So we go from 5-6-5 to not 1 uppercase but 1 lowercase here. So I was tempted to say that we modulated to the key of E minor, but really we are sort of in E land. The tonic doesn't really change, it's just the triad that's built atop it. But this E minor triad still kind of amazes me, like why? There's really no, like I really can't think of a justifiable reason why. But anywho, we then have a 5 chord, that's just a B major triad, and the 7 gets introduced here, but I'm just going to call it a passing tone. And then we have a 1 chord. And unlike yesterday's chorale where after he modulated to C, we went immediately right back to G, he stays in E, I think, all the way until the next phrase. So let's take a look at it more. We have E, E, G sharp, and B. All the voices rise up a pretty significant interval, at least a fifth in all of the voices, and an octave in the bass. So I'm not going to reanalyze that chord, it's just moving up. And then we have an A major chord. Now I'd be tempted, if I hadn't looked ahead and heard this cadence right here, which is definitely a perfect authentic cadence. It's very similar to the cadence that we have here. In fact, it's almost identical to the cadence that we have here. I would say that this was 5 going to 1 in the key of A, but I don't think we moved to A yet because we still keep D sharp in the realm here. So I think we're still very much in the key of E major. And with that being the case, I'm going to mark this as a 4 chord. A major in the key of E major is a 4 chord. And then 4 often goes to 5, which is a B, D sharp, G sharp, B. But this G sharp right here is like an appoggiatura or like an accented passing tone because this F sharp is the chord tone. And then we have this suspended C and suspended E in the middle voices. We have a C sharp, E, and A right here. 5 goes back to 4. Kind of interesting that that 5 doesn't go to 1. But here we have sort of like a double passing tone figure here because these don't really change the sonority of the chord. A, C sharp, F sharp, and E. I guess you could call that like a 2/7 chord-ish, but I'm just going to call them passing tones because they happen on a weak beat and they're divided amongst the weak beat. 4 eventually goes to a 1/6/4 chord because we have B in the bass, which is the 5th of this E major triad, E, G sharp, and B. And then we have a 5 chord right here. And then we introduce the 7 again with that passing tone. It's almost like a suspension. And the way that we analyze 1/6/4 going to 5, at least in a lot of the textbooks that I've read, is by putting a bracket underneath them and just calling it 5, because 1/6/4 and 5, they go together because they share the same bass, and all you're doing is moving the other 2 voices down by step. And then it doesn't modulate. What am I talking about? It goes to 1. But that 1, we end up going back to A major at the beginning, so I'm going to analyze this as a common chord. We're going to call that 1/5. Okay, keeping that in mind, we're going to go to the beyond the repeat. We don't need to reanalyze this, and we're going to look at the next phrase. So here we have C sharp, G, C sharp, E. That's a 3 chord because remember we're thinking in terms of A major now, not E major. A passing tone in the alto. Notice how high the alto is singing up here. That's a pretty big range, as you can see. Like if I was grading chorale homework, I would mark this as a distance issue because there's more than an octave between the upper voices. And that's, generally speaking, something not, it creates too much of a distance in the chord. At least that's the way that I learned how to do it, and I would mark that. But look, Bach is breaking the rule, which means that it's okay. Here we have F sharp, A, D. That is a 4/6 chord, and notice how Bach doubled the 5th. He doubled the inner voices. I think that was to preserve the voice leading because it's just an upward line, and this line is pretty much going downward the entire time. So we have 4/6. We have leading passing tones in the lower voices. They eventually go back to 1. A, C sharp, A, C sharp. There's no E in there. This is a really interesting passage regarding the voice leading. This is an incomplete triad where the 3rd is doubled and the root is doubled. So that's kind of interesting. Usually you're tripling the root, or you are, when you're omitting the 5th, you're tripling the root with 1/3 rather than doubling the root with 2/3. It's kind of an interesting thing that Bach is doing here. And then we have another passing tone in the tenor line. 1 goes to 5 because we have E, E, G sharp, and B. That's an E major triad, a 5 in this key. And then we have a 1 chord right here. But one thing that we have here is another G natural. This is the second G natural we're seeing, and when we naturalize G, we're left with C sharp and F sharp. So what could this possibly be implying? Well, if we have A, E, G, and A, that is an A7 triad without a 3rd. It's kind of interesting. So I guess if we were to assign this, I'm going to go ahead and put this in parentheses because it's happening on a very weak beat, but the G natural, you really can't just ignore it, because that really gives this A major scale a mixolydian sound, because it's basically an A major scale with a flat 7th. So we're going to look at this as sort of a kind of like a 5-7 of 4, because A7 is the 5 of D, or the dominant of D, and it goes to D. So this G natural is very D major like. So, and it immediately goes to 4. So I think there was some intention there. But then we have a double passing tone figure here where we reintroduce the G sharp. And then we have C sharp, E, A, C sharp. That's a 1 chord in first inversion. And the passing tone where we cadence on 5 again. Now this time when we cadence on 5, if you go back to the chorale and listen to this point, it sounds like a half cadence. So I'm going to mark this as a half cadence here. We're still definitely in the key of A major, but what happens next is really interesting. So here we have another chromatic note. So the only chromatic notes we've seen so far are G natural and D sharp. So D sharp and G natural have both been used to contextualize E, whether it's been E minor or E major. But A sharp, when we add that to the key signature, that puts us in the realm of B. But you look in here and we get A naturals and G naturals moving forward as well. So what does that do to the key? Well, when we add G natural, like we did right here, we introduce sort of the realm of D major or B minor. And when we have this A diminished triad, like a 7-6 of 2 in this case, I think we're modulating to the key of B minor. And this would just be analyzed as a 7-6 if we're thinking in terms of B minor. And we would expect B minor on the next beat, or some type of chord. The trajectory would be B minor. And sure enough, we get B, F sharp, B, D. That's a B minor triad. And now that I'm suggesting that we've modulated, this is a 1 chord. We have some counterpoint here where we get a passing tone here, but this voice just leaps down, and it's a syncopation, which is really interesting. Ba 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 ba. So this F sharp leaps down to B, which is just another chord tone, so we don't need to analyze it as anything special. But this A right here is a passing tone. If we look to the next beat, we have another 7 chord. We have C sharp, G this time, G natural, C sharp, and then A sharp. This is our chord tone here. So the chord is fully voiced by 2 and. This is a 7, 6, 5. And because we have A sharp and G natural, it is fully diminished. That A sharp to G natural is a diminished 7th. Therefore, this is a fully diminished 7th in first inversion. And then we are moving on to the next beat where we have a B minor triad in first inversion, B, B, D, and F sharp. This G right here is kind of changing the chord quality here, even though we have like a neighbor tone right here. But we have E, G, B, and B. That's another first inversion triad. Well, actually, with first inversion triads, I learned to double one of the outside voices. So maybe this is definitely a neighbor tone, but kind of what's happening here is a 4 chord, very briefly, but we'll put that in parentheses, just because it's happening at a very fleeting moment, and more specifically, it's a 4 chord in first inversion. So let me go ahead and put a little superscript 6 right there. And then we have F sharp, C, F sharp, A sharp. That is an F sharp major triad, and that's a 5 chord in the key of B minor, and it's going exactly where we expect it to go, right to B minor. That's a 1 chord. And I think if we look at the key, if we look at the piece for the rest, we don't see any chromatic alterations. So I'm thinking that this is going to be analyzable as a common chord. I love having all this extra space at the bottom of the page, by the way. I think this is a 2 chord in the key of A major. because what's happening immediately after that is a 3 chord. 2 can go to 3, they are adjacent to one another, and it's happening after a fermata. So this is kind of like a period, a new thought. So 3 is going, after this passing tone right here, it's going to F sharp A, C sharp A, which is really interesting because we have a root position triad where he's doubling the third. I wonder why he's doubling the third here, because you know with root position triads, it's common practice to double the root, as it's been in the majority of the voices. I mean, it's like, why didn't he just voice the chord like he did here? Who knows? It's probably just to preserve the voice leading. Sol, do. Sorry if you have perfect pitch, that was not in the key of A major. Yes, sorry, just lost my train of thought. Okay, we're moving on to the next beat. We have E, G sharp, D, B. That's not only a 5 chord, that's a 5-7 chord. And then we have another double passing tone figure in the lower voices, like we had right here. But instead of going down, it's going up. Sorry, instead of going up like it was earlier over here, it's going down over here. So we have C sharp, E, C sharp, E. So that right there, that's kind of in the realm of 3. And remember, 3, 1, and 6, they all share 2 notes in common. They're like the tonic functioning chords for that same reason. They share 2 notes in common. And then that's immediately going to go to a D major triad, D, D, F sharp, D. So we see here is how an incomplete triad is usually spelled, with 3 tonics and a third. 3 going to 4. We have a passing tone here. And then we have some weird editorial thing. Why on earth is the tenor singing way up here? It would have been so much easier. They had no problem writing F sharp here, but why is F sharp here? I don't really know why the editor made that choice, but maybe it'll become clear. If you have any commentary on why the editor made that choice, please let me know. A, C sharp, A, E, that's a 1 chord. And this A right here, the alto's holding it down here. I think that these are all sort of passing tones throughout this entire section as it's holding it down, because here we have C, E, D, and A. Yeah, there's really not a lot it's counterpoint at this point, but really it's implying A major and then moving down the scale, or up the scale and down the scale at the same time, to this 5 chord, E, E, G sharp, B. Just a 5 chord right there. And then we have B, F sharp, B, D. So 5 after this fermata is going to go to 2. And then we have F sharp, A, C. That's another 6 chord. I think 6 usually wants to go to 2 and not vice versa, but I guess Bach's using some type of transitive property where you can, if one can go to one, the other can go to the other. And here, I'm pretty convinced we have some passing tones here, because it doesn't really change the harmony. We have G, E, G, A. That would be like an A major 7 with the doubled 7th. I really do think that these are just passing tones that are going on right here. I think we have like some, we're preparing for the cadence at this point. So 6, we would sort of expect to go to 2. Let's see where it goes. A, D, F sharp, B. So we have a 2-7 chord, but the A is in the bass. So that means that this is a 2-4-2 chord. Very cool. Passing tone in the tenor to G sharp, B, E, E. Good. That is a 5 chord in first inversion. And then it just leaps down a third, so we don't have to reanalyze the chord, but we can change the figure bass to A, C sharp, F, E. So here we have a 6 chord, or a 6-7 chord, because the E is up there. Then we have a passing tone in the tenor again, a passing tone in the alto, a passing tone in the soprano as well. We have like these 3 passing tones going down to eventually this A, E, A, C sharp. That's just a 1 chord. Kind of the same way that 1 went to 6 earlier. 6 is going to 1. Bach likes that 1-6 progression, or 6-1 progression. We have another passing tone here, a passing tone here as well. We have F sharp, E, A, and then we have this doubled sound right here, which is really interesting. One going back to sort of like this 6 or maybe even a D, F sharp, A, A. We might even be compelled to say that this right here is the chord tone, and this is actually a 4/6 chord. I think that that's more likely. We're somewhere in the realm of like 4 or 6, like the 4/6/2, or no, sorry, 4. Yeah, 4 and 6. Yeah, 2, 4, and 6 all no, 4, 6, and 1 all share one note in common, right? 6 shares 2 notes with 4. No, I'm messing something up here. If a note is a third apart, it shares 2 notes with the chord it is a third apart from. So 4 and 6 share 2 notes in common. It's like a 4 or like a 6. It really depends on what you hear as it really depends on what you hear as the bass. It really depends on what you hear as the sonority that is dominating the texture here. I think this D being interrupted or inserted into the texture here is playing a role. So I'm calling it a 4/6 chord, but it very easily could be a 6 chord as well. What really matters is that F sharp in the bass that's going down towards F sharp, going down towards E, which is then going to go down towards A. So that 4/6 chord goes to a 1/6/4, E, C sharp, A, and C, which is interesting, or sorry, yeah, A and C sharp. It's interesting because we're usually taught to double the fifth of the chord with these 1/6/4 chords. Then we have this C sharp leaps up to F sharp, and then this goes down to D. So then we have D, F sharp, or a D, F sharp, A, C. That's kind of like some counterpoint going on right now because this F sharp is not a chord tone, but we have like a 4/7 kind of happening on this very weak beat right here. I'm not even going to bother analyzing it. I'm just going to call this a neighbor tone where we're just there's just counterpoint going on right here because it's very clear that the 5 chord is going to happen afterwards. We can just analyze that as 5, and then we have, another chord tone that is a passing tone or just like an ornamented sort of leap going back down because the trajectory is C sharp. So instead of just going B, C sharp, it goes B, E, D, C sharp, ending on a 1 chord. A really fascinating chorale. I wouldn't expect so early to see a lot of these developments. I think the real highlight of the chorale was here early where we hear this E minor going to E major, these cross relations in such close proximity to one another. Overall, as far as the form is concerned, we have an A section that consists of 2 sort of independent phrases. They both are perfect authentic cadences. This also is a perfect authentic cadence. I did not mark that at the time, nor did I mark any of the perfect authentic cadences here. This E triad is definitely a half cadence because it functions as a dominant. But if we look at the structure, we have perfect authentic cadence, and that repeats twice. And then in the B section, we have half cadence, perfect authentic cadence, half cadence, perfect authentic cadence. So I'd say that A, B, it's like A, B, B. I would say that's kind of a loose way to look at the form, but all in all, very interesting. He explores 3 different keys, A, E, and B, which is interesting. All the keys are close to one another, but seeing how he gets to E major and how he stays on it is really fascinating via that E minor triad. It's a nice little surprise. But that being said, everyone, I think that's all that I had to say about this chorale. Let me know what you think. Are there any things in my analysis or any aspects of my analysis that you would perhaps not agree with? Maybe you would have reinterpreted something that I interpreted differently. I'm really excited for your feedback. Please let me know. And I'll be chatting with you all tomorrow with another chorale. Thanks for watching the video. Happy New Year. Take care.